What we're talking about here is the most vulnerable citizens in our state. We should not be setting policy that punishes people for following their doctor's advice. And that's what this initiative is about.
Well, you can follow your doctor's advice. My doctor may say, Howie, go home and take your sleeping pills, please. But nobody would suggest I go to work that way. Your initiative says, if I show up and I test positive for marijuana, I cannot be fired unless the employer can show actual intoxication or that I got high on the job. This is an exception that does not exist for any other prescription or legal drug in this country. Tell me why marijuana should be given that special treatment.
If we allowed employers to fire employees because they test positive for marijuana, what we are saying is that if you're a medical marijuana patient, you cannot be employed in the state of Arizona. And that is far too onerous a restriction to put on medical marijuana patient.
Mr. Myers, how long does marijuana stay in your system that you can still be tested positive for it?
Up to a month. So I mean, you could have somebody who, like Heather, for instance, who uses marijuana during her chemotherapy treatments, and if she hadn't smoked for 3 weeks, and she was subjected to a random drug test for whatever reason, and actually there was an incident that happened in Michigan where something like very similar to this occurred. It was there was a workplace incident. It was followed by a mandatory drug test, and the presence of metabolites in the system for that employee happened to be a Walmart employee in Michigan, and that patient was fired. That employee had been employed a year for that store the previous year, was a brain cancer patient, and lost his health insurance because Walmart terminated his employment. We need to provide workplace protections for people. That was the last state that enacted a medical marijuana law, and we learned from that experience.
But as you know, you could smoke 3 joints and then go to work, and your THC level isn't going to indicate whether you just smoked 3 joints. Other prescription drugs would show a high level in your blood system, short of walking into work with a blazing joint. How do you prove somebody's intoxicated on THC?
I think the question's been asked and answered. I mean, I don't really know.
So you can't.
We can't.
You can't prove intoxication through clinical means.
There does not exist a test very similar to a blood alcohol test for marijuana like there is for alcohol.
I'm curious about any regulations on the dispensaries. Are there maximum amounts of marijuana that will be allowed in there? I mean, this raises the question of people, drug addicts going in dispensaries to rate them. And are there any limits in how much marijuana is kept in the dispensaries?
There is extensive regulation on the dispensaries. Quantity limitations are not one of those. However, the security requirements are very strenuous on the dispensaries. I mean, we're very mindful of whenever you have a large quantity of a controlled substance, whether it be marijuana or anything else, there are serious security considerations that need to be taken into account.
What kinds of security?
I would imagine having an armed security guard on the premises whenever the establishment is open, having security camera requirements, making that each dispensary has to have a separate and distinct entrance from any sort of larger facility that it shares space with, like if it was in a strip mall.
Well, let's talk about this. This is out of San Francisco. Are we going to end up with the same sort of ads for marijuana clinics here that we've got there? People are going to be competing because they want?
I think drawing comparisons from California to the initiative that we're proposing here is almost impossible. I mean, we're dealing with an entirely different system. California's dispensary system is not regulated statewide at all. Still, there is no statewide regulation of the dispensary system in California. They have an unlimited number of dispensaries unless counties or municipalities enact limits on their own. For instance, just to give you, where's that paper from, by the way?
It's from San Francisco.
That's from San Francisco?
It's Mike Lacey's San Francisco alternative.
Right.
We'll be seeing this in New Times.
No, I can't speak to San Francisco because I don't know the number of establishments, but LA County, for instance, they had over 800 marijuana dispensaries in LA County alone. There are more dispensaries than there were Starbucks. We have a statewide limitation on the number of dispensaries of 120 statewide, which is 1 dispensary for every 10 pharmacies in the state. So, we don't have, while we have many pharmacies, we certainly don't have a pharmacy in every corner. We'll only be maximum 1/10 the number of dispensaries in the state as there are pharmacies.
So is there any prohibition against them advertising in your initiative?
No.
Okay.
But we're dealing-
So this is good for Mike Lacey.
No, I mean, we're dealing with a very large patient population because there is no restriction on the conditions that you can have marijuana recommended for in California. That is something that is different here. We're going to be dealing with a much smaller patient population and a much smaller number of dispensaries. I mean, and Howie, frankly, you know better. You know that that's not what's going to be like here. I mean, you know the limitations in the law as much as anybody else. Right, and nonprofits, and not only that, the dispensaries. Thank you. Dr. Sisley points out that the dispensaries here in Arizona have to be operated as a nonprofit.
Well, come on, I know how nonprofits can operate. You can give yourself a large salary and still be a nonprofit. Come on, Andy.
These regulations combined are going to create a system that bears very little to no resemblance to the California system.
What about other states? How does it compare with some of the other states too?
Actually, there is not a state that we can point to that has a similar dispensary system to ours. The reason for a lot of that is that when California enacted their law, the challenges that they encountered because they had a dispensary system, many of the subsequent states decided to go with a different model. What they said is that if you're a patient with a qualifying condition, you can cultivate a certain number of plants for your own personal use, and those numbers vary from state to state. When we drafted our initiative, we had a few goals in mind. First of all, is we wanted to have the most open patient access that we could. We wanted to have, if you're somebody who was middle-aged and was diagnosed with cancer and was having difficulty with their chemotherapy treatments, and you've never smoked marijuana before in your life, and your physician was to recommend marijuana to you, we wanted to create a system that was patient-friendly. That somebody who didn't know anything about anything would be able to locate a dispensary, get the product that they need, and be able to get the medicinal benefit from it. The second thing was that we wanted to have cost controls. We wanted to try to avoid the situation that's going on in California where medical patients who go to dispensaries pay basically street prices for their marijuana.